For a second, I'm like, oh my god, like, what is Bucky, bro? Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Sorry for the inconsistency. I'm still like trying to recover from midterm season as well as the start of spring, which, if you guys have seen my previous videos on just me being out during the springtime, it's usually pretty rough at the beginning. But that's besides the point. Falcon and the Winter Soldier came out, and we're going to be talking about episodes 1 and 2, and what I think about kind of like some of the political undertones, because I feel like those things are a little bit more interesting than some of the things I've seen. I don't know. I have mixed feelings, but let's just get into it. So last night I did watch both episodes again, and then I also took some notes, so you guys can see these notes up on the screen just so we know where we're going with the conversation. So just starting off with Sam packing up the shield. I honestly forgot that Captain America was still alive, not gonna lie, so I'm like, oh dang, like they're going to a funeral, but no, it's just putting the shield up, which people take issue with, specifically Rhodes and Bucky, but you know, we'll get to that when we get to that. So he's packing up the shield. Then we go to a cool like flight suit scene, which the action was very like high quality, like Marvel stuff that you would expect to see in the theaters. So that was really awesome to see for a TV series. And I'm curious as to like how far they're going to be able to push the action, especially in the later episodes coming towards the finale. So some of the things that I was thinking about while rewatching, we meet Lieutenant Torres, who, for those who don't know, he's rumored to become the next Falcon, but his version of the Falcon is actually more like a mutant or an inhuman, or I don't even understand that concept. I know mutants better because I watch X-Men. So he's supposed to actually have like wing arms or something going on there. So I'm wondering if they're going to go that route or if he's just going to adopt the wingsuit that Sam wears. Then we have this freaking intel dude. This whole mission was centered around recovering this one intel dude who survives out of his whole like crew of people. So I'm like, what makes him so important? And we never really figured that out. So that was just a little weird thing. I don't know. It didn't necessarily bother me. I was like, why? I don't know. And then I say faux action here. My handwriting is like okay, but writing on the screen makes it look even worse, so don't judge me too hard, okay, please. But I said faux action because I didn't feel a lot of the weight from like the stuff that was happening, and I don't know if it's because like I just watched the Snyder Cut or like the end of WandaVision, or I don't know what it is. It just, the action felt like oh, I'm watching stuff happen, but like if you see me do like this, like you're like, oh, she's punching. Okay, what else? Like, that's kind of what I felt like I was watching. Like, it was cool, but it's missing something. Like, maybe some kind of camera movements, or I don't know. Missing something for me. So I said Red Wing was cool. Old Cap is the villain. Cool. Oh, old Captain America villain. So, yeah. The guy who was kidnapping the military dude, he was from one of the old Captain America movies, so that was cool. I didn't actually know that. I watched some other YouTube videos about the episode and they told me. The freaking, oh my gosh, the market for like knowing comic book knowledge these days, making gold out of that, so congrats to those people. See, it pays to be a nerd. But oh, then we have government sabotage, which becomes quite the big thing like the more you watch the show. So after the mission is over, Sam is trying to repair Red Wing, which is his little robot bird. And he says that like every time somebody tries to fix it who's like in the government, it always ends up being messed up. Now someone said that might be because, you know, it's Stark Tech, so it's like super advanced or something. But I'm like, if that was the case, then wouldn't they look at it and be like, oh, I don't know what the frick is going on there. I'm not even gonna try. Like, I feel like there definitely could be some potential sabotage, especially with what comes at the end of the episode. So that was a little interesting thing there. And then Steve on the moon was another thing that was mentioned. The previous Captain America. So that could be, he could be up there with Fury. He could be up there with Monica. But the question is, why would he be there? Especially as a retired superhero. Like, what more could he provide to the Avengers or to S.H.I.E.L.D. or to S.W.O.R.D.? I don't know. And then we have Rhodes giving Sam the talk, like, hey man, you know you messing up with this, right? Like, you should not be giving the shield away. You can totally change your mind. He's like, no, like I don't feel like the shield is mine to own. So that ooh, and then I have time stamped comment. Oh, I remember this. So I think Rhodes starts talking about like needing a hero for the times or something, and I don't know, it kind of felt very much like, and I feel like Sam struggles with this throughout the series, the whole idea of like taking the spotlight, but also being a black man taking the spotlight. And I feel like that might not be the core message, it might just be me reading it too much into it, but they're definitely incorporating more of like black culture and making Sam not just like a character, but a black character that can identify with different things in this show. And then we have Bucky's scene. I just wrote, damn, Bucky. Yeah, that scene was wild. For a second, I'm like, oh my god, like, what is Bucky, bro? Like, somebody said the code words, but now it's just a dream. But I do like the callback to, like, Captain America and Sam talking about, like, they sleep on the floor because the mattresses feel, like, too soft, like they're sleeping on clouds or something. So that's why Bucky was probably sleeping on the floor. Oh, and then the therapy shots, they were so good in my opinion. It definitely nailed that kind of like feeling of being uncomfortable and like super self-conscious of like everything that you're doing, especially when the therapist starts trying to pull out the notepad when he's not trying to talk. That was just a really good scene. And then I don't know if this is going to be a big deal, but it's just like something that was mentioned is the rule number 2 being that you shouldn't hurt anybody. It should be rule number 1. Is there some kind of special reasoning behind that? I feel like me probably reading too much into this, it could be kind of like a, loyalty to your government above all else kind of thing, which I can kind of see happening throughout the series, which I'll go into later detail. But I could also see it just being like a, I don't know, just a thing that was written down and they just made it weird order for some reason. So then I write down Old Man Yuri, frowny face, because I knew, like, as soon as I saw him, I'm like, why would he be in the show and why would he be hanging out with Bucky? And I'm like, oh, that's sad. But then it was Old Man Yuri, like, winky face, because he was hooking up Bucky, being his wingman. I'm like, dang, that, I can tell I'm already going to enjoy his character. So then Bucky being on the date, this isn't really something that was like super important, but I was just thinking because he was talking about the whole gloves thing, like he could have just said he was an amputee and it was cover up his arm or whatever. But I don't know. Besides the point, that was kind of a weird topic to talk about on a date. Like Bucky's connection to Old Man Yuri. I get, because like him and the waitress have that in common since they see each other a lot when they go out to eat. But the whole like talking about the death situation and how it messed him up, I don't know. Like, I guess it was okay, but I don't know. That was a weird date topic in my opinion. But then still, he just straight up walked out. I'm like, dang, Bucky, that. I could see why, because that's painful for her to talk about, but she was clearly like, did I say something wrong? I don't get it. So, and then Sam with the boat and his sister with the meals. I think Disney needs to provide some test plates, for fans who just, curious as to, we want a little taste of Sam's life, just a little bit. It did kind of remind me of some of the old soul food places that I've been to. So I'm like, ooh, I wonder how good it is. Especially they got some fresh fish too. But let's see what else. Oh yeah, and this is something that I hate that happens in a lot of like action stuff, where somebody is trying to get another. So let's say I am Torres. Lieutenant Torres is walking up to one of the Flag Smasher people with a gun. And I'm like, a gun is a long distance weapon. You do not have to be that close. Why do you keep approaching them? I get it's kind of like to progress the story or whatever, but I feel like it's kind of a cheap way to do it. Like, you could figure out something else. Like, maybe he rushes him, like the Flag Smasher rushes Taurus. That would make more sense. I don't know. Just a little gripe there. But we do get the Flag Smashers introduced, and we also see that some of them are super soldiers, which is revealed in the second episode, I do believe. So clearly we're seeing, like, the government did not give us all the details about, like, who became a super soldier and when. So that's a little interesting part that I feel like they have a lot to work with in the series. Oh, man. And then this scene where Sam cannot get a loan. I think I reference Black Nerd Comedy a lot because I really enjoy his videos, and he's like, come on, man, black man can't get a loan even though he's an Avenger. And I'm like, yeah, I was totally thinking the same thing. Which that's why I keep saying, like, the commentary of being like a black man in America, or just being a black man in general, I feel like, I don't know, it's just been super present to me, I guess, because I'm trying to find something like interesting to latch on to. Like, I think the story is generally interesting, but I'm looking for something a little deeper, and I think my conspiracy theories are the depth that satisfy me at the moment. But his sister, I believe Sarah, did say that she was a widow, so I'm like, oh, maybe they'll talk about the husband a little bit later, because we don't know what happened to him. Maybe, I don't know, the supers always have, like, some kind of peripheral super in their family or something for some reason. So I'm like, maybe he was some kind of super and the nephews will be a super. I don't know. Interesting little thing that they could dive back into later on. And out of pocket, Sarah says out of pocket a little bit too much for me. Like, I feel like nobody says out of pocket that much in real life, but that's just a personal thing. And then a new Captain America. This, I was actually shocked about this when I saw it at the end of the episode. Considering the trailers, they don't talk anything about there being a new Captain America. But you do see Sam and Bucky throw the shield around. So I'm like, obviously, they're going to get it back. I don't know what the government, like, put the shield in the Smithsonian. Like, I don't know. Wow. It just left me with some questions. And then seeing the new Captain America come out, I'm like, oh, wow. And I also thought, Popeye. I don't know. Just, like, I guess the way the camera angle for one, and then, like, the way the helmet was kind of, like, smashing his face up in there. I'm just like, dang, he looks a little bit like Popeye. But that was the conclusion of episode 1. Now, episode 2 is where I think things get a lot more interesting. I was much more engaged with episode 2. Episode 1 was like, if I were to rate it out of 10, I'd say it was a solid 6. Like, it was better than average, but I was still like, eh. In terms of TV shows. Well, I guess Marvel TV shows. In terms of regular TV show, it'd probably be like an 8 or a 9. But Marvel TV shows, comparing it to WandaVision, especially with the ending being recent memory, it was definitely kind of slow for me. And I'm not sure if, like, all the series are going to have a slow startup, or at least I feel it has a slow startup, but if that's the case, then I can learn to deal with that, just to have a building of tension, I guess. But moving on to episode 2, we have the most black people we have seen since the Black Panther, I feel like, which it was just interesting because I don't know. It makes me think about, like, the representation of black people throughout the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and not even just the Marvel Cinematic Universe, but just in media in general. And it's sad in a way that, like, seeing so many black people makes me think, like, oh, like, this must be some kind of political agenda because they're trying to make a show about the Falcon, so we need to have more black people or something. More black people than, like Like, I don't know, it's so weird because like black people exist in the real world, yet you rarely ever see them on TV or in movies and stuff like that, unless like it's for like a black role or something, which sad, but so I was talking to my friends about this particular subject, and they're saying like, oh, like why do they have to make it about politics and stuff? Like TV is supposed to be an escape. I'm like, I agree with you, but I disagree with you at the same time, because I feel like if this were some kind of fantasy show, then sure, yeah, TV can be some kind of escape. And I feel like in some ways this is, but in others, this is kind of supposed to be like a more relatable, like modern day superhero story. So it's going to have like some kind of embedded truths about our own society and such. So it would be inappropriate, or not inappropriate. It would not be inappropriate to mention these kinds of things, because ultimately these shows and movies are created from imagined realities that people create up in their heads, and they have to draw from something. So obviously, like, you know, even if it's not intended to be political, like sometimes these things are just going to happen because, you know, they're just drawing from things that they've seen in real life. Oh, and I also wrote like Captain America always has to have a black sidekick, lol. I don't know. I don't know what it is. It's just so weird. But let's see. Oh, so after this scene happens where they introduce the new Captain America in his hometown, at his old high school, with the drum line and everything, we then see a scene with Bucky being like, and then he goes and approaches Sam while he's getting ready to go on a mission for the military. And he's like, Sam, like, what the frick did you do? Like, Steve chose you for the shield. He didn't choose anybody else. He chose you. So why did you give the shield away? So they kind of have like a little bit of a back and forth. He's like, oh, nice to see you too, Bucky, because Sam had been trying to contact him for a while, and now he shows up just to yell at him, which I was like, that's fair. That's fair. So then there's a line where Sam is trying, like, I know like you've lived for like 100 years or something, but I don't know. I feel like he was kind of referencing like older times, like obviously in times when people of color didn't have as many rights, or were denied of their rights. And he was like, you don't have the right to tell me what my rights are, which again might be reading too much into it, and he was just trying to say it like it was. But I do feel like there is some kind of social commentary in this. I don't know. You guys let me know down in the comments below. Do you feel the same way, or do you think I'm reaching? I could be. Oh yeah, and then he makes a joke about Bucky trying to be all stealthy. He's like, oh dang, my camera's about to die, hold on. Sorry about that. But it was funny because he was saying like, oh, you hang out in Wakanda for a little bit, you come back White Panther. And he's like, oh no, actually it was White Wolf. And he's like, huh? So that was a pretty good joke in my opinion. I really enjoyed that. And so this next point kind of goes into what I was about to say. See, I'm in my own mind, I guess, or no, I'm not. That doesn't make sense. But so I wrote down like weird goofiness at times with the brain joke. So after they're like stealthing around, they see like, oh, like there's a hostage in the back of one of these trucks. So Bucky breaks into the truck. He sees this girl who's like sitting on the ground, and then she starts like smiling menacingly. It turns out she's the leader of the Flag Smashers. So they have a fight. They get their butts beat. The new Captain America and his sidekick Hopkins, I believe, shows up. They also get their butts beat. So as Bucky and Sam are doing the walk of shame back to the airport, Sam like does this joke about Bucky, like, oh, like, what are you thinking, that cybernetic brain of yours or something like that, like, oh, I can see the gears turning, oh my god, they're on fire, oh no. And I guess he was just trying to lighten the mood, but it feels very, I don't know, I feel like sometimes their relationship, I feel like they're trying to move it too fast, at least for me. It is like hard for me to make friends, or it takes me a while to say like, oh, like this person's my friend, just because I'm like pretty picky. So I guess that could just be my own personal thing. But there's that. Oh, this was straight up goofy though. So while the new Cap and Hopkins are fighting on the top of these trucks after like Sam and Bucky had already like rolled out. Hopkins gets pushed off the truck by Carly. I don't know why I say Carla every time. Carly, who is the leader of the Flag Smashers, and John Walker, who is the new Captain America, throws his shield so he catches his friend Hopkins. And as Hopkins is sliding away, he just looks at him with this goofy, like super cheesy smile, like, "Hey man, thanks for saving my life." And then John looks back, he's like, "Hey, I got you, bro." And then he goes up there and gets his butt beat and falls off the thing and hits a car. So I'm just like, the goofiness is it's a little bit too much for me sometimes. But going back to Sam and Bucky's relationship, I do feel like sometimes, I don't know, Sam might be trying a little bit too hard, at least is what it feels like to me. But it does kind of have like a good balance between like Sam's trying to be a little bit more lighthearted and Bucky is just like dark and somber, like, let's just get this done. So after the scene, we see the Flag Smashers are taking refuge with some citizens that were living in the area, and they heard about what they were doing. They're like, "Oh, we love what you're doing. Like, please come stay with us, like however long you need." And Carly gets these two texts that are like, you know, "I know what you took from me. You're gonna pay for it," basically. I'm like, oh, that is interesting. Who could that possibly be? I honestly have no clue. I'm sure that the comic book experts have already figured it out. So I will definitely have to do a little bit of research there and come back with episode. Maybe I'll do 2 episodes at a time. So my episode 3 and 4 review, will definitely talk about that. Let's see what's been figured out. And then I said don't get their cause at all. After I watched another video, I do understand their cause. So basically, the Flag Smashers want everything to go back to the way it was before or after the blip, when half the people were gone, because it united a lot of the people, like, oh, we have to look out for each other, to try and like keep our societies going and stuff like that. So when people came back from the blip, they were saying the government was solely focused on those people and trying to get them like integrated back into society, and they didn't care about the people who had survived those 5 years and had struggled doing so. So yeah, I definitely understand their cause now, and I can be a little bit more sympathetic with it. But this chant was weak. The first time we hear this chant, it's like, one people, one world. And literally, that's about as enthusiastic as they get. They're like, one people, one world, one people, one world. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is sad. Carly, you need to get your people together. And then this scene was actually pretty dope in my opinion. So after Sam and Bucky do the walk of shame, get their butts beat, they are on a plane going somewhere back to America, I guess. And Bucky's like, listen, like, you need to meet somebody. So they end up going to Baltimore, Maryland, I believe. And what was funny, a little funny thing. So there was these 2 black kids that were sitting on a corner, and one calls out to Sam. He's like, "Oh, hey, you're Black Falcon." And he's like, "No, I'm just Falcon." He's like, "No, my dad said you're Black Falcon." And he's like, "So I'm Black Falcon just because I'm black? Are you black kid?" I thought that was a pretty good point, and a little, little undertones on saying little undertones, because that happens so much. There could never just be like, if Superman were black, they'd be like, "Oh, that's Black Superman." Or freaking Black Panther. Why couldn't he just be called Panther? Or, I don't know. It's so many instances of that. Not saying it's like a huge deal or anything, but it's still, I don't know. It's like, what's the best way to describe this? Like, it kind of makes it so it can't just be like anybody. Like the Spider-Man example, I guess. Like, Spider-Man could be anybody. He's not Black Spider-Man or White Spider-Man. He's just Spider-Man. So, yeah. I guess that's just kind of the way I feel about that. Sad but true. Sad but true. So the reason why Bucky or Sam are there is to meet a man named Isaiah. And it turns out Isaiah is actually the Black Captain America from the comic books. And I think they kind of like merged material here, because I don't think he's supposed to be in the timeline with Captain America. Like the now I want to say normal Captain America, but it's like he could have been normal Captain America. But y'all know Steve Rogers Captain America. So that was a cool little tidbit. I actually didn't know that, and now that makes me like want to go back and read that even more so. But it was like he was very straight to the point, which I feel like added to that scene and even more, because he was very upset about what happened. He was saying, like Steve goes out into the war, like saves the day, and he's brought back a hero. Meanwhile, like they sent him on undercover missions to do basically what Steve was doing, except nobody really knew about it. He comes back, he gets put in jail for 30 years. So it just goes to show, like, that's, I think, another one of those points that like Sam kind of thinks about in his head, because if he were to have taken up the mantle, he would have been in a similar situation as Isaiah, as far as like having to be this kind of symbol that some people would not be proud to like uphold, or even be disgusted with the fact that we have to do this and try to keep it secretive. So I don't know, that was a very interesting little touch, and I feel like that's when my whole like this is a little bit political idea started to form. Oh, it was that, and then I wrote down the MFing cops. Oh man. So yeah, that just kind of returns back to my point of what it could mean to be the Black Captain America, and just the craziness that continues to go on in the world. That's incredibly sad, but yeah. So after the police show up, Bucky ends up being arrested because he missed one of his therapy sessions. So they head down to the police station, and the new Captain America, John Walker, ends up breaking him out. And they're like, oh, like, how are you able to do that? He's like, I'm the government. And all the time that Steve was Captain America, I don't think he ever said once that he was the government. So it just makes it very clear, like, oh, this guy is very clearly abusing his power, and is probably not going to end up being a good fit for Captain America. It doesn't make sense to me how he's able to even do all these things, considering like Steve was held on such a leash, I feel like. But before they are able to leave the police station, Bucky and Sam have to sit down and do a therapy session. And I think another one of the most impactful scenes of the episode was Bucky sitting down and basically like spilling his heart to Sam and telling him, like, it's important to me that you gave away the shield, because that means Steve might have been wrong about you. And if Steve was wrong about you, then Steve could have been wrong about me. So it just shows how highly he held Steve's opinion in regard to his like road to recovery, and separating himself from being being associated with Hydra. I don't know why the name is slipping me right now, but that was really, really impactful. And then Sam has like a not so great answer to that, which was a little bit weird for me. I'm like, if you can see where Bucky is coming from, like, why wouldn't you say like, oh, like, I kind of understand where you're coming from in that sense. Instead, he was like really defensive, like, I don't know if you or Steve can understand, but I did this because I thought it was right. Which he has the right to say that, but being able to empathize with Bucky there would have been like a nice bonding moment, in my opinion. So then episode 2 ends off with Bucky and Sam are chatting with John Walker and Hopkins, and they're kind of not really aligning with their goals. John Walker's like, I want you guys to be on my team so like we can all work together and figure out what's going on with the Flag Smashers. And Sam and Bucky are like, we're free agents. We don't have to go through all the steps that y'all have to go through to get things done. So it wouldn't make sense for us to work together. He's like, okay then. Well, don't get in my way. I like that was so like just a roundabout turn from like, oh, let's be friends, guys. Even like multiple times they were like very clear on their intentions to not work with him, but he was still like, let's be friends. So it just shows how fake he is. So yeah, now I think we're episode 3. I feel like we are going to get to the meat of what I've been looking for, and I can be like, okay, now I am fully invested. But yeah, after that scene, Sam and Bucky are talking like, okay, what's our next step? And they say, well, Isaiah was talking about my people, and Sam was like, oh, don't take it like that. And he's like, no, he meant Hydra. So who's the person that we can talk to try and get some more information on that? And they conclude it's Zemo. So that is where they're going to be heading to go talk to Zemo in episode 3. And that is where the episode closes off, with just a shot of Zemo hanging out in jail. I kind of wanted to just end this with some talks about, I've been learning a lot about like different things that are important in PR, especially my PR classes. Who would have guessed? There's something called CSR, which is corporate social responsibility. I don't know where I put CPR, but I feel like this is kind of Marvel's way of trying to draw some attention to some of the existing issues that we have in our country, and how like some of these issues are embedded in the government, which they are working, Sam and Bucky and John Walker and Hopkins are working very closely with and trying to navigate this system, as well as bringing up Isaiah, who was the Black Captain America, and having to deal with just like the pain that the government had caused him, and their treatment of him after he had done all of those things, and was successful in his missions. They threw him in jail, and then the whole police situation. I definitely think that if they don't directly identify that, like, hey, some of these things that we're talking about are real issues in real life, I definitely think that they're going to make it at least pretty blatantly obvious with some of the content that's going to be in later episodes, which I think is good. I honestly think is good. I understand what my friends are talking about TV needing to be an escape, and I feel like on one hand, like, yes, like TV should not have to always be about like things in life that are upsetting to us, and they can be a way for us to just take our mind off things and live in a different world for a little bit. But in content like this, that's like centered around like us being in the real world, especially with Falcon and the Winter Soldier, like trying to be a modern day type thing, I think it is good, especially with having a black lead, to have some of these things addressed. Even though I do feel like it's unfortunate that whenever you have a black lead, it's like, oh, now is the opportunity to address these things. But that is just the way it is for the moment. So I do think the messaging is good, but I think we need to have this message in just like all kinds of different media, not just media that has like black leads or like people of color throughout, just in general. Create some kind of dialogue. And I also think that this dialogue needs to transcend past watching the show, and we need to actually like do some kind of good. And I'm sure that Marvel or Disney has some kind of initiative in place for people of color, or for people in the LGBTQ community, disability community, and multiple communities that are misrepresented and not as equally represented. But I don't know, at least in my area, it's a hard topic for people to interact with. So hopefully we can get to a point where we can talk about it, because when we can actually talk about it, we can actually start making solutions. But yeah, those are my thoughts on the Falcon and the Winter Soldier episodes 1 and 2. So far, it's not been bad. It's just not been super intriguing to me yet. Which I felt the same way about WandaVision until episode 4. Given we don't have as much time of this series, so I'm hoping episode 3, halfway mark, we start getting to the point where I'm like feeling really invested and interested to see like what happens next. But so far I've not reached that point. So fingers crossed for that. But tell me down in the comments below, what do you guys think about the topics that I brought up in this video? What do you think about the series in general? Are you guys like enjoying it a lot? I know a lot of people are, but I'm just not really in that state quite yet. But yeah, let me know down in the comments below. And if you like videos like this and you want to see more, make sure to hit the like button and subscribe to make sure you get those notifications of when they go live. So yeah, I hope you all have a nice evening or your night, whatever's enjoy it, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.